Danielle Carver, 36, stood in wet cemetery grass over two fresh graves, her husband Tom and her 6-year-old daughter Lily. Her parents and brother had skipped the burial, calling it a trivial event, and flown to Hawaii the next morning. 5 days later, her mother called not to grieve, but to ask for $40,000. What she said next meant Danielle would never call her mother again. These days, Danielle wakes at 4. The keys to her rig are the first thing she touches, still cold, warming in her palm by the time she reaches the lot. She drove long haul for 11 years before any of this, and Tom used to grin every time some dispatcher handed the clipboard to him instead of her. Just to watch the man realize the boss was the woman with grease under her nails. By the cabin door, 2 small yellow rubber boots still sit where Lily left them. She hasn't moved them. 3 days of rain that spring turned a creek into a wall of water. Tom picked Lily up early from her grandmother's because of the weather and took the county road home since the highway was flooding. There was a low water crossing out past the Henley farm, the kind you'd never think twice about on a dry day. The water came up over it while they were on it. Danielle was 500 miles away on a refrigerated run. She drove home in 9 hours flat, shaking the whole way, and arrived to find casseroles on her porch and the sheriff's truck in her driveway. 9 hours fast across 4 states. Still 9 hours too late. Her first call was to her mother. Her mother's first question was whether the funeral could wait 2 weeks, because there was a family trip to Hawaii already on the calendar. Danielle told her that her husband and daughter were dead. Her mother answered like she was talking to a coworker who'd missed a deadline. Then her sister-in-law Mallory took over the group text and wrote that the tickets were non-refundable, and the kids had been looking forward to it, calling the funeral in writing. A trivial event, not worth attending. Her mother's reply was a thumbs up, and the word agreed. The front pew at the funeral stayed empty. Danielle sat in the second row with the people who'd actually come. Tom's dispatchers, the diner ladies, Lily's kindergarten teacher, the soccer team Tom coached. Her uncle Ernest drove 4 hours and stood beside her with his hand on her shoulder. She gave the eulogy herself. Afterward, Ernest told her the only honest thing anyone in her family said that month. They're not coming back to you, not really, plan your life like that's true. 5 days later, her mother called from the Honolulu airport, straight to business. We need to talk about the money, she said, the $40,000. Danielle's brother Nathan had sunk his savings into a car dealership that was now failing, and the family needed to pull together. When Danielle didn't answer fast enough, her mother said the line she'd hear in her sleep for the rest of her life. We can always make more money, Danielle. We can't make more family. Danielle asked one quiet question. What $40,000 do you think is yours? Here's what that money actually was. 4 years earlier, buying her first tractor, Danielle had been short on her down payment, and her parents had given her $40,000 at a family Christmas, calling it a gift toward her future. Because part of the down payment came from relatives, the bank required a signed letter stating it was a true gift, not a loan, no repayment expected. Danielle had driven the document to her parents' kitchen table herself and watched them both sign it. Then she filed it away and forgot about it. Her mother had apparently forgotten too, or simply decided the gift no longer counted now that Nathan needed it back. Nathan called next, leading with the dealership, then the family, then the line that told her everything. You're alone now, what do you even need it for? Mallory texted that family money was a shared pool, and it was someone else's turn. Danielle later learned they'd already been telling relatives their version. That poor struggling Nathan was being abandoned by selfish, wealthy Danielle. They'd built the story before she'd even said no. One night, exhausted, she actually sat down with her checkbook, ready to write it just to make the calls stop. Ernest caught her at it and asked if she'd really pay them to keep skipping her funerals. She put the pen down. Going back to work meant facing people who assumed she'd fold without Tom, a bank officer suggesting she sell the equipment, a broker spreading doubt to shippers. An old dispatcher friend, Glenda, bought her eggs, and told her plainly, "People are either working with you or against you. Stop waiting for the doubters, make them irrelevant." So Danielle called every shipper who'd ever trusted Tom and told them the truth. The owner was still the woman with grease under her nails, and she was still on time. Weeks later, a contract too big for 2 trucks landed on her desk. To take it, she needed to sell Tom's old rig. Clearing it out, she found his paper logbook in the door pocket, the kind he kept out of habit. On the last page, dated the week before he died, was a list titled things we're going to do. Buy their own rig outright, no bank, get their name on the door. The final line read, Carver and daughter, so Lily grows up knowing her mama built something. Above the visor, she found Lily's crayon drawing of 3 lumpy trucks, labeled Mama's trucks in careful kindergarten letters. She filed new paperwork. The company became Carver and Daughter Freight. Meanwhile, her family worked on her name. Mallory ran daily guilt campaigns, forwarding photos of Nathan's kids with captions about losing their house. A cousin, Renee, told Danielle what was circulating, that she'd turned cold and rich and abandoned her struggling brother, and also told her something else. Renee had been at the funeral, had seen the empty pew, and wasn't buying any of it. Then Renee called with a warning. At their parents' 40th anniversary party, the whole extended family would be there, and Danielle's father planned to publicly call her out for refusing to help her brother, putting her on the spot in front of everyone. It was a trap with 2 exits: cave in front of 40 relatives, or refuse and prove she really was the villain they described. Either way, they thought they won. Danielle realized a room full of witnesses could work both ways. She got a certified copy of the gift letter from her bank's loan file. Her parents' signatures, plain language, the funds represent a gift, no repayment expected, not a loan in any form. Renee also found something devastating in her mother's own social media feed. A sunny photo of the whole family in Hawaii, lays and cocktails, captioned about making memories. Timestamped the day, after Tom and Lily's burial. A timestamp doesn't lie the way a phone call can. The night before the party, Ernest offered to stand beside her. She told him no. A shield is for someone about to lose, and she wasn't going in to lose. She was bringing 1 folded page and the calmest hands she'd had in a year. The church hall was decorated for 40 years of marriage. Her father stood, tapped his glass, and made his appeal in front of everyone. They'd given Danielle $40,000 once. And now that she was successful, she wouldn't lift a finger for her own brother. Mallory added that they'd even missed a funeral for family, and this was the thanks. Danielle stood up. She didn't raise her voice. She laid a printed timeline on the white tablecloth, the burial date, and 1 day later, the Hawaii photo captioned "Making Memories." "You didn't miss the funeral for family," she said. "You skipped a child's funeral for a vacation, then flew home and asked the grieving mother for $40,000. Nathan exploded, shouting that she was twisting things, that she owed the family, that she was selfish and bitter. She let him finish. Then she set down the certified gift letter beside the timeline and slid it toward her father. "You both signed this," she said. "It says in your own signatures that the money was a gift, not a loan. You can't bill me for a gift you swore wasn't one." Then she said 3 things, gently. To Mallory, "You taught me which events are worth attending. I'll remember that the rest of my life." To her mother, "You told me we can't make more family, you were right, so I've stopped trying to make one out of you." To Nathan, "You asked what I even needed it for. I needed it to bury my daughter." You needed Hawaii. Renee stood from the back of the room and confirmed every word, naming the dates. The room turned. Relatives who'd been nodding along to her mother's story now had a timeline, 2 signatures, and a beach photo in front of them, and they had nowhere to look but ashamed. Nathan, finally out of steam, said quietly that he was scared. It was the most honest thing he'd offered her in 11 months, but he still hadn't said her daughter's name, hadn't said sorry. Danielle folded her 2 pages back into her coat. "I hope you figure it out, Nathan," she said. "But you're going to have to figure it out without me." She walked out into clean, cold air. The dealership folded that fall. Danielle went no contact with her parents and brother, quietly, without drama. Ernest still comes for Sunday dinner and sits in Tom's chair. Renee calls every week. Carver and Daughter Freight now runs 5 trucks. Every one painted deep green with Lily's 3 lumpy crayon trucks traced small on the doors, where you'd only notice if you looked. Drivers ask about it at truck stops, and Danielle gets to say her daughter's name out loud. She finally moved the yellow boots, just to a shelf where she can still see them on her way out the door at 4. This spring, almost a year out, she drove back to the lake at dawn with a fistful of wild daisies and left them on the bank for the 2 people who actually built her. The water held still, the way it does, and held her with it. Family isn't the people who share your blood, she says. It's the people who show up when there's nothing left to gain, and the ones who walk away the moment there is.